Welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and it's Monday. Yes, Monday. You're saying to yourself, Larry, why are you so excited for Monday? Didn't you just have a show? I did, and I was crazy busy, but I'm still here, and I'm here for a very special reason, and I mean special. I have a guest, and I don't always have guests. It's true. I don't always have guests, but this one. And it's not even a politician. Like usually if I have, it's like some politician I'm going to hype up or something. No, my friends, not today. Today I have a serious conversation with someone who is, I'm sure, going to tell you things that some of you are going to love. And some of you are going to say, this guy's nuts. And that's the best kind of conversations to have. He is an independent journalist. By the way, also on Civil, just as I am, the man himself, Derrick Broze. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Larry.
Of course. Look, the reason why I wanted to bring you on is because you have what I think most people would think is a little bit controversial, in that the average person believes that independent media is actually independent, that it's actually doing the stuff. And, you know, it's not CNN, it's not Fox, right? It's so different. And they don't have any corporate masters and they don't have any agendas. And it's just them doing it. You don't seem to agree with that. Am I right?
Well, that's I think true in some instances, and then maybe less true in other ways. What I mean by that is that I call myself an independent journalist. I'm completely funded by my own readers, by my own viewers. I do work for a website called thelastamericanvagabond.com, where I'm a writer on a weekly basis. And they're also funded independently just by supporters online. As far as we know, there's no billionaires or corporations funding us. And so I believe in that. And I believe there are others like that. But, you know, what you're really touching on is there's sort of two approaches that I see that question. One is that I think the ways that people accept that the old media, the corporate media, has been influenced by, say, U.S. intelligence agencies or just corporate propaganda. People believe that the internet has sort of freed us from some of those things. And it has in many ways. People like you can have a podcast, myself and others. We can, get all kinds of opinions. And at the same time, I think there's a fair amount of data to support the idea that the efforts by governments and others to propagandize people have shifted from legacy media towards podcasting spaces. And so a lot of people who might appear to be independent out there potentially are not as independent as they appear. So I think there's that sort of conversation. And then at the same time, I do disagree with maybe some others who are, say, in the audience who listen to various independent media podcasts and shows, and they might look at an article from CNN or the New York Times. And because of that history of intelligence involvement and, what people would call fake news or lies like weapons of mass destruction, stuff like that, people have lost faith in those institutions, understandably so. But they'll sort of look at let's say you share a fact-based article that's sourced and everything, but it happened to come from CNN or New York Times, Washington Post. There is a good chunk of people out there who would immediately dismiss it and say, "Oh, it's fake news," or "I'm not even going to read it because it came from them." So I think that there's some people in the independent media space and this sort of freedom-minded space of questioning things around the world get to a point where maybe they're looking at things too black and white. So everything independent, so-called independent or alternative, must be right and true and good, and everything from the corporate legacy media must be false and fake. I just don't think it's accurate.
The next piece that gets me is, I think most of us thought, at least I did, as the internet came in and there was more and more options, that great, now I'm going to be more informed. Now I'm going to have more options and more good conversations, because now I'm not stuck with my 3 channels and my Fox and CNN. I'm not stuck with that anymore. So I'm good. But I feel like what many of us have done, and the algorithms make sure that's true, which is now I stay in my bubble. And I've seen people and friends of mine, people I know and love, who can't imagine talking to someone or watching someone outside of their bubble, right? So if I watch the Young Turks and my friends are right-leaning, they go, how can you watch that garbage? You can't watch the Young Turks, right? If I watch Matt Walsh, And my left-leaning friends go, you can't watch Matt Walsh. That guy's a Nazi, right? They immediately attack me and I can't watch it. So I feel like maybe that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that what you point to is another one of my big gripes. And, for me as an independent journalist and as a researcher who, I didn't originally come into this position like as a lifelong goal. I just sort of stumbled into it through activism in the 2010s. But it's something that I decided to take seriously enough that I did start taking some journalism courses, and at the least tried to take the good from the mainstream way that journalists are taught and leave the parts that I think aren't worth keeping. But journalistic ethics, things like this, I think there's some value to that. What I think has happened is because of the independent media space has grown so quickly and so many people have jumped in there, that not everybody who might call themselves a journalist or not even consider themselves a journalist, but they're still out there broadcasting, has thought about those things. So they don't see the need to consume that other media. In fact, just in the last week, I've posted some similar sentiments on social media saying to my audience, like, I don't really agree with most of you who think anything from the mainstream's fake. Like, I pride myself on reading the New York Times and then NBC and then Fox News and then Washington Post and then The Atlantic and a handful of other mainstream media. And then I have my own independent media sites that I check out and podcasts I listen to. And of course, picking up things through social media. And that takes a lot of time. And that's basically my job. And I think most people they're like, well, that's not my job. I don't have that much time. I just want to come back and have one website or one person to tell me things about the world. And what you touched on there, I think, is most of the time people want to be told things they already agree with. And they're sort of afraid or reticent to read something that is opposite. When I go out of my way, if like, I know I'm not going to agree with this person's approach on this particular topic, I'm going to read it because you learn about, even if you don't come away feeling like, oh, okay, now I know something new, at least let's say you understand your opposition better at the very least. But you learn, I feel like, by consuming more material, and it does give you, because of the landscape, like you said, with the internet, it sort of freed things, but it also made it more chaotic. So instead of 3 channels, you got 1 million, and there's definitely that they're not all true, and there's lots of conflicts. And so it can be a full-time job. But even if you don't make it a full-time job, I at least encourage people, dip your toes into what CNN's saying about a specific event and see how Fox is spinning it and see what the independent media is saying. And of course, if you have the opportunity, I think getting to primary source documents is always a good thing. One of my other pet peeves is I see that the mainstream media, they'll report on, let's say, a breaking court case, and the judge has ruled X, Y, and Z, and they never link to the court rulings. I mean, they have them, they're looking at them, but the average person doesn't know how to go on Pacer or other court websites and find these documents. And so when I read an article like that, I'm just always annoyed. I'm like, just show me the documents. I don't need your interpretation of it unless you're just quoting from it directly. Even then, I still want to read it. To me, that's a big example how people become dependent on letting, whether it's corporate media or independent media, tell them what to think. And I try to encourage my listeners, like, don't even just trust me as the sort of middleman between you and the news. Like, I check my show notes and everything I'm referencing will be there and you can read it. And if you come away.
All right. Well, let me be clear in my audience. Please believe me blindly. Do not check anything out. Just blindly believe everything I say. Check out nothing. Please do never do your own homework. Just whatever I say is basically true. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
That's another approach for sure.
That is another approach, yes. But that brings to my next point, though. Two points which you brought up. One of them is, I'm a libertarian, and I had Mamdani, the mayoral candidate, on my show years ago, and he's a socialist. So clearly we don't agree with things politically, right? But we had a great conversation. I actually like the guy. I mean, I tell him this all the time. If you meet him, you'll like him. He's a good guy. He's actually trying to make things right. He is. So we disagree politically, but I think we should have a conversation. I'm glad we did. So I agree with you on that. But there's a second piece, though, that I want to add to this is what you're saying to do, to your point, is hard for most people. Most people, even if they wanted to do what you're saying, most people don't even know how, right? And then that's another piece to do. And they've got life and they've got work and they've got stuff going on. It's a whole lot easier if I just turn on Derrick's show and listen to what he says, right? That's a whole lot easier to do that.
Sure.
But here's the more important piece. What most people are looking for is not how right Derrick is. They're looking on how charismatic he is. And that's my other worry, because now they're not going to pick the guy who's doing the homework that you're talking about. They're going to pick the guy who is either the best looking or is the smoothest or whatever is their version of charisma, right? Whatever that person enjoys, they're going to be doing that. Is there a way around that, or are we just screwed?
That's a great point. And it's funny you bring that up because I mean, not to speak to my own charisma, but there's times whenever I have people watching my videos and they'll be commenting about my hair, and I'm like, "Did
Yeah.
you watch anything I said in the video?" There's just always going to be some of those people. I definitely
Yep.
think you're right. That charisma, and this is something that if it just comes naturally for other people, it could be things that are coached,
Yep.
and developed over time. You also mentioned the algorithm, of course, earlier. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into shaping people's media habits and how they consume it. I was actually reading today earlier just about the growing percentage of people, mostly Gen Z and younger millennials, but who are getting their news, like truly everything they know about the war or the economy or whatever else, from TikTok. And it's in,
Yes.
10-second clips or 1 minute or less. And those people, though, are typically just taking that, like, say they're reading a CNN article, but they're doing their commentary on it, right? So it's not like these are actual boots on the ground journalists, who are doing things. They're just repeating things, but they're doing it in a way that the younger generation is more used to, because they don't go to CNN. They're not going to go to Fox News or any of the sites that we mentioned. They don't even really visit websites. They just get it all through social media, like a lot of us do, but even more so with TikTok. And so there's so many different things that are shaping the algorithm. And even specifically with that, they said that the vast majority of the people who consume their news through TikTok, they don't use the search bar. They just literally go through the feed and scroll endlessly until they
Yes.
find something they like. And then they kind of plug in. And then the algorithm, of course, shows them more of that type of thing. So there's problems with silos online, with the algorithm, with people's own predisposition to fall for a charismatic personality, like you point out too. I think there's a lot of difficulty in the media space today, and it's frustrating. I mean, for me, I'm lucky that I can eke out a living doing what I love to do and what I enjoy doing, and and I enjoy that. And the numbers are steadily increasing over the years. But it's frustrating, and this is why I find myself trying to call for my peers to do better. It's frustrating to watch people who reach the millions of followers or views and things of that sort on things that I can prove are false, or at the least not the full truth. And it's just, I wonder still sometimes if there's a space. There clearly is an interest for people who like deep investigative work, like myself and some of my other peers, Whitney Webb, Ryan Christie, and these are names that people who like deep independent work, original work, know of and will seek out. But a lot of people are really interested in just the sort of quick take, a hot take, and that's all they're looking for. So it's a
Yeah.
difficult space to try to be somebody who's out there that actually does value truth, does value original on the ground reporting, trying to develop your own sources. That's not what a lot of people in the age of social media, independent media, actually do. They usually just pick stories that are already out
Those
there
are
and
the
then
two pieces that
comment
I
on
want to
them.
bring up, that you just brought up.
Yeah.
It walks to the same two pieces, and that is one, the charismatic, either cute guy or cute gal who's going to be saying stuff on TikTok that they want to watch. The odds are very high, to your point. They're probably not doing much investigative reporting, right? So they're just picking up whatever they saw on CNN or Fox or whatever they thought, and then they're going to put their own spin on it. That's probably going to make no sense because they don't know what they're talking about. Not to be mean to them, but they probably haven't done any homework, to your point. So whatever CNN tells them, they're going to decide in their own head, does that make sense or not, with not knowing any better, and go, see, this is stupid CNN saying this thing, or the reverse. This is amazingly awesome CNN saying this thing. So I worry about that. But there's a second piece that goes on top of that. We still need the CNNs and the APs of the world, even though we're dissing them. Without them, half of this recycled shit we couldn't even see because they're doing part of the work. Now, what makes me angry about CNN is if you go back 20 or 30 years, CNN used to be a very serious news station that had tentacles throughout the world. And when something happened, they actually had real reporters who lived in the countries, who knew the people, all that stuff. That's been decimated. And CNN has become a conflict machine, yelling at each other about how evil Trump is or something, right? They have kind of lost what they were. Now, you can tell they still have some of it from one thing. If you've noticed, CNN still once in a while makes some decent documentaries. So they still have that culture in them, kind of sitting back someplace, right?
Mhm.
Where they can actually make some decent documentaries. And it's, things like the Princess Diana story or something, right? But they're good documentaries. People watch them. They like them. They want to see it. They can do it. So we have two problems. One, we need the CNNs or APs or whatever. So how do we replace them? Or do people like you replace them? Are you the guy who replaces them? Or what do we do?
I think that's one of the solutions, just to before I jump into that, one of the other points that you were bringing up reminded me of a problem I've seen being somebody who is an online reporter and has friends and peers. And I see what other people do, and I try not to judge publicly. I just like, okay, they want to do clickbait. That's fine for them. I'm going to focus on serious stuff. But people often feel like they have to comment on every major event, even if it's something they have no idea, nothing, like you pointed to, like having no idea. Something happens major, and people will do their best to, okay, people are talking about this, it's trending, I need to follow the trends, I need to tell my audience about this, so let me go read Wikipedia real quick and then pretend to be an expert about whatever it is. And I think that's a big problem. That's something I've shied away from. One of my editors years ago told me to focus on content and journalism that was evergreen instead of the story of the day, the story of the week, because nobody's going to read or watch what was important August 4th, 2013. Like nobody's going back and watching those videos I did 10 years ago, unless it was a documentary or a book or something that stands the test of time. But yeah, I mean, as far as the media landscape you describe, there's a couple of things that have happened. I mean, I was a witness and part of, and thankful to be so, the rise of the independent media, which in some ways coincided with the rise of the Ron Paul movement in 2008, 2012. A lot of that was libertarian leaning media for the most part, and some like sort of police accountability pages. I was writing for pages like the Anti-Media, the Free Thought Project, the Mind Unleashed. These are not the CNNs of the world, but they had 4 million followers on Facebook, 5 million, 9 million. We would compare the analytics from CNN and from some of the mainstream news to ours, and we were kicking their butts every month during those years of 2010 to 2015 or 16. We could see that we were kicking the ass of the mainstream media and reaching hundreds of thousands of people a week, millions a month. And it was an incredible time. At one point, we had full teams of writers, editors, meme makers. Things were going well for the independent media at that time. And then around 2016, when the claims of Russian interference in the election and talk of fake news, there were some lists that got circulated that claiming that certain websites, different independent websites, were tied to Russian bots or whatever. And I'm sure some of them may have been, but a lot of us got lumped in and labeled this. And within a week, nearly every website that I was writing for or contributing to essentially had to fire all their writers by the time 2018 rolled around. It took about 2 years, but first in 2016, they claimed we were connected to Russian bots. Then Google ads said, we're not going to serve ads for you guys anymore. So that was a big loss of revenue, because journalism has always been dependent either on a rich benefactor or ads, whether you're a newspaper, magazine, online. True. And that's a model I think that needs to evolve, but we haven't figured out. But nevertheless, within a week or two of that sort of hitting full effect, we all basically lost our jobs, and many of those sites are no longer around. Some of them have eked out an existence with 1 or 2 people on team and on staff, and it's nowhere near the level it was. But at the same time, independent media has grown in the sense of podcasts and things like that. But it's such a diverse and distributed network that if you're lucky, if you as a single person with a team can survive, let alone trying to compete with the New York Times and have editors and full writers and staff. And it's very difficult. And at one point, many of us in the independent media were actually trying to compete with AP and Reuters. We had come up with an idea to start working with journalists around the world that we were getting connected to because of this beautiful thing we call the internet, and starting to come up with the idea for an alternative news wire that would still be factual, but it would be something that would be, a competitor, hopefully, to UPI, Reuters, AP, the real news wires where mostly everybody gets their news from, as you said. So I do think there's a place for them right now. I think the reason people are skeptical of a lot of the things that comes from those news wires, or say CNN, even though I agree with you, they are still capable of doing good work, is because of the lies of the Iraq war, because of, maybe things they heard around COVID that they learned later were not factual or were exaggerated or whatever it may be. People have just lost faith in media. And I say for better or worse, because on one hand, I celebrate it because I'm like, yes, turn to the independent media. But on the other hand, all the problems we've discussed with independent media. And it gets to this point where, as I said earlier, people just blanket anything from corporate media, mainstream media is all fake. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to read it. Even if I'm like, literally, it's quoting Trump. It's his own words or whatever it may be. They're like, no, it came from a station I don't like, so it can't be true. And that's kind of a deeper problem of people wanting to confirm their own biases and stay in their bubbles.
All right. I got to take some super chats. Got a bunch coming in, all from the same guy. Lunatic Libertarian is here, and he is popping a bunch of stuff up. First, he says, love this dude, Derrick Broze. So you got fans. You already got fans already. He says, V for Vendetta, great movie. True. It is a great movie. I completely agree. That absolutely true. He also, thank you for $2, my friend. All ends of info allow for wisdom, primary source. Again, I agree. The primary source is critical. But again, you got to find people who you can trust who would actually look at the primary source, right? My team often wants me to do news stuff. I don't. I'm not a news guy, to be forward. I'm a culture guy. I'm a politics guy. That's what I do. So to your point, I usually don't do everything that's happening during the day. I do things that I think matter in my world. And I rarely go to primary sources. When I have an opinion, it's often my opinion. But when I do say things, I bring receipts. Like I show the receipts when I have receipts. I do that, but not that often. Usually I just talk trash. So,
but you show people what you're basing your opinions on, at the
correct.
Least. And it's kind of like in a newspaper, there's going to be a section labeled op-ed. If you're just talking opinions, hopefully people are intelligent enough to pick up, this is one guy's opinion, take it or leave it.
Absolutely. Yes. So Lunatic now, okay, he wants to get stuff done. He says, when do we stop talking to take action? Well, I think I'll be very forward, Lunatic. My goal is, I think guys like me and Derrick are taking action. We're actually doing things to make change. We're packing up and moving around. We're talking to people. We're getting stuff done. I think we are. So he then goes on to say, I got a lot to say. I'm sorry. He keeps doing super chats. I got to keep going, Derrick. Excuse me. He says, call to action. All hands on deck. I repeat, all hands on deck. Yes, I got it. I've been on ship before, my friend. I've been on ship before. The emergency has surpassed us. All hands on deck. Humanity should survive. Mixed DNA. And finally, it's all bullshit. Anarchy, skill sets, tangible. They are. Okay. I think I got all of them down. Yes, I think I got every one of them. Yeah, did I? Yeah, okay. I got all the super chats out. Okay, thank you, Lunatic. I appreciate it.
I think he just sent one more.
Did he? Hold on. Primary source. Yes. Solving starts from the origin. Thank you, God. Yes. Lunatic, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. All right. You and I got to do a show together because you just keep throwing stuff at me. But when we do, I've had Lunatic on my show before. And when I do, he's quiet. Now he's not. He's hooping and hollering.
He's in the comments. He's got a lot to say.
Yes. All right. So I got to bring him on again. All right. It's fine. You win. I got to bring him on. But let me keep going. You have some fans. Kintsugi says, hey, won't be on tonight, Derrick. I'm watching your Pyramid of Power series on Civil. Very eye-opening. Thanks.
Cool.
So you have some fans.
Very cool.
Look at that. Speaking of that, guys, you guys know he actually is on, you know what? Yes, he's on Civil. That is correct, as am I. So, guys, here's what I want you to do. If you want to watch a lot of cool stuff, right? If you do, you can watch my show, obviously, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. live. You can watch it 7 p.m. only on Civil. It is the coolest live show on Civil. Why? Because I said so. That's the reason. Literally no primary sources. Literally. And damn, it's still true. So that's one. But not just that. You can, if you want to, anytime you want, not just live, you can actually watch. Hold on. I'm going to put it here right now so you can see it. You can actually watch his series, which is right there. And it is called... And I'm going to put it so you can see it. Did I do it right?
I don't see it yet.
Oh, there we go. It's going to be there. It's popped up. There it is. It is the Conscious Resistance Network. Yes, the Pyramid of Power documentary series. You can watch it right here. There's a lot of them. I started watching. I couldn't finish it all. There's just too many of them. I got to keep.
A lot.
It's a lot. I got to keep watching. And that's just a part of it right here.
Working as an investigative journalist over the last decade, my work has pushed me to host a radio show, write books, and produce numerous documentaries about the realities of child trafficking, the dangers of technology, and indigenous struggles.
So basically, he's a slacker and doesn't do much at all. So you understand, he's lazy, does no work.
Now, I aim to uncover whether there exists a network of individuals and institutions which ties these issues together. Many researchers posit the existence of an international cartel which covertly manipulates world events for their own benefit.
Now you have got, I'm not going to show you anymore because now I know you're excited. Now I know you're interested. You go to the right-hand side, you will see these are all the chapters. He's already down here to chapter 17 already. Yes, 17. So when you have a second, head on over to Civil. Watch this. What do you do? Sign up. It's civl.com. And when you put your name in, upper right-hand corner, give me the green shaded thing, click that button and put in code Larry, Larry. The coolest name on the internet. Again, no primary source. I just say so. Coolest name on the internet is Larry. Put that in and you'll get 50% off for the entire year. That means $25 for the year. You can't, you are robbing Civil with that. You should be embarrassed with that price. When you get that price, you should turn yourself into the cops and go to jail because you have robbed them. That is how bad it is. CIVL.com. Put code Larry, 50% off, $25 the entire year. You get my show on Wednesdays. So many cool. Every show I do this, I show you something cool. Now I'm showing you this entire series. The Pyramid of Power documentary. You can see it right here on Civil, CIVL.com. There we go. So want to make sure we got that down. I know, Derrick, you hate that series, I'm sure. But I'm sure other people will like it. So I'm sure somebody will like it. So yes. All right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes. Of course, man. Of course. Let me grab a couple more comments if I can. Mike says, independent media offers insight, history, predictions on consequences, and understanding of nuances. Kit Cabello, me, Sabby Sabs, Crowder, Russell Brown, Tim Pool, and of course, Larry Add to the News. This is the part that I think is powerful that he's talking about. New media is very different. Now, I've run for office more than once. And when I have to go on like a regular TV show or something like that, very often I've got 6 minutes at max. I've got a couple of minutes. I have to get a sound bite out. I've got to focus on sound bites. But when I go on longer shows, 2-hour show, hour show, half-hour show, I can have a real conversation. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people want that more. And I think, you tell me if I'm wrong here, the independent kind of podcasty shows have influenced the news to make them have more shows like it. Am I wrong?
I think you're 100% correct. I mean, and this is the sort of interesting things about the way people consume media, because both of these things are true, that there's obviously a taste for the Joe Rogans and the other podcasts, 3 hours, 4 hours long even. But as you said, at least an hour, people will tune into that. There used to be this sort of sentiment that the public doesn't have time or they're not interested.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's the other extreme. There's the TikToks, the Reels, the 30-second sound bites. So there's clearly a desire for both of those, but there's definitely an audience to go deeper. And yeah, I mean, even some of the names that the comment mentioned there, those aren't necessarily people that I trust for their view, but I definitely have dropped into their universe every now and then to see what they're saying on commenting on things. As I said earlier, trying to consume different things. I think that it is an important thing to try to diversify where you're getting your news from. And we're all going to look at different, have different ideas of what that means. But for me, I think it's sort of rounded, like you were saying. If you want to listen to a Young Turks, great. And then maybe you're watching the Daily Wire over here, whatever names you might insert in there. The point is, those are obviously outlets that people would consider to be diametrically opposed. And so you're getting a bigger perspective. And then, of course, informing that with your own, the more you do educate yourself, not just with podcasts, of course. Books are still there. They still exist. Those are great, even in the age of podcasts. But you more informed so that then you can better take on the media and the things that are shared with you. So you can hear Larry's opinion and someone else's opinion. You can decide, does that agree with your own knowledge base or does that disagree? Instead of just kind of letting somebody pour their own opinions into you and then just repeating that as if you're informed.
There we go. Kim says, I believe independent news is many times the truth the mainstream news doesn't give us. I feel that way too. However, how I feel is when I watch the CNNs and Foxes, and I do, what I feel like is, and Derrick, tell me how you feel about this. I feel like that's the approved views of the corporation. Like that's approved. Like if I spew that, I'm safe. Like that's the safe opinion to have, is whatever CNN or Fox tells me. That's the safe left or right view to have. That's how I feel. I feel when I go to other places, I sometimes get stuff that doesn't always feel so safe.
Yeah, I think that, again, one way or the other, where you're talking about CNN, where they try to play a centrist, but they clearly have some left bias, and then Fox News, which obviously has its bias, and then all the others. Yeah, those seem to be, as you said, maybe those are the approved safe opinions. So if you're at the the neighborhood hangout and you're with other people, it's okay to say this opinion or that opinion, as long as you don't stray too far out of that particular, those particular answers. And I do think that's why it is important to consume some independent media. I mean, again, the questioning everything aspect is just increasingly important to me, being able to have that and to know that your brain and yourself is, you're going to look to confirm your biases. It's something we have to kind of battle as humans. And so being aware of that, of like, okay, no, I'm starting to only listen to this because it's going to tell me what I want to hear, which for me is kind of boring. I've never found that exciting. It's not challenging. I do like to be challenged intellectually, or at least consider new ideas. Like you said earlier, interview somebody who you don't have the same policies on, or politics. I think that's more fun and interesting than just listening to half an hour of somebody telling me things and me just sitting there saying, yep, I know exactly
out of my head.
Yeah, exactly. I want something.
I thought that the whole time. I'm so smart. I'm smart. Exactly. The kind I think like, yeah, I'm so smart. Let me grab one more if I can. Lunatic says Rogan has made the example. And I do think he has. I think he was the guy who broke it open more than anybody else. And I remember when I ran in 2018, I was able to do several big podcasts. And I remember the difference between the three of them, three of the bigger ones that I was on. I was on the big ones at the time was Joe Rogan, Glenn Beck, and Dave Rubin. Those are the three that I went on that were bigger at the time. And I didn't know how big Joe Rogan was. I really didn't. My team's like, you going on Joe Rogan? I'm like, oh, the Man Show guy? They were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the comedian, right? No, like he's got like a huge, I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. Like, yeah, it's good. Idiot, go. So I went to the Rogan show and my social media exploded. It probably doubled my social media within a week. It was huge. But the interesting piece is I didn't raise as much money. I raised more money when I was on Dave Rubin's show. And Dave Rubin's show was a much smaller show than Joe Rogan. And it was because the audience was different. And I began to learn that audience matters, right?
Absolutely.
Now, my favorite one was Glenn Beck because I know Glenn Beck. So him and I got along well. So it was a very good back and forth interview. Other guys I'd never met before. I'd never met Dave Rubin before. I'd never met Joe Rogan before. So I never know these guys. But I'd already met Glenn Beck. I already knew him. So it was easier for me to be able to have that conversation. But I look back at those times and I think in 2018, that wasn't mainstream. That's what made me more popular. But today, it's the norm. It has changed in these last 7 or 8 years. It's changed a lot. Does that affect you? In other words, when you're doing news, are you thinking about that? Or are you just like, I don't care, it's just the news?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about the numbers. Of course, you do your best. Anybody who puts themselves online, you do your best to not become obsessed with them, because I think that's a recipe for, just becoming too consumed by that and self-conscious.
Yep.
And for me, my drive has never been financial or, just my own ego. Obviously it's nice when my work gets millions of views or I get on a big podcast or something. That's a nice pat on the back. But it was always, as I said earlier, because my background came from waking up during the Ron Paul movement, getting into activism. And then from that, a couple of years in, starting to question my local media back in Houston, where I'm originally from. And then like, okay, maybe I should start picking up a camera and going to press conferences and asking questions. And I just sort of fell into it. And so it was really just driven by maybe some idealism or just, a passion. But part of that passion is I want to be seen by people. I want my information, my stories, my documentaries to be seen by people. I make them to be seen. So of course I do care about the numbers. And I do pay attention to how the media landscape has evolved. And I've seen it for years where the corporate media there's two trends that have increased. One, in the corporate media, is going behind paywalls more and more because they've lost advertisers and because the papers are shrinking. Even if it existent, a lot of papers, of course, are no longer existent. You have that happening in the mainstream, as well as a lot of local news is dying off because of lack of funding. So those two things are not good. I mean, you end up with just the sensationalist cable, big news stations, corporate media, and very little, and somewhat independent. Like, people think if you're a Fox, say Chicago or NBC Houston or whatever, that means you have the same ties as the big company, but it's not always true. A lot of the smaller local stations, they actually do have good investigative teams. They actually are doing good reporting. And this is one of the reasons why I push back when people are like, oh, it's all mainstream, it's all garbage. It's like, there's a lot of journalists out there doing good work. They're not worried about being influencers. So they don't necessarily have a following on social media or anything. They're just doing good work out there. They're actually
I remember when I was running
podcaster.
When I was running, I would have some reporters like seek me out because I was an independent candidate. There was some doing it. No mainstream people were doing it, but some of the local ones, you're right. They were actually looking for me. You're totally correct. Now, look, it's right. It's tough making money. It's true. So guys, help me make money. Click the like button. Click the button known as Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. Click that button. Derrick's giving me his time. He's sitting here talking to me, having all his time here, and you guys sitting here laughing at me, not hitting the like button. Why are you so mean? Why do you hate Derrick? What did he do to you? Nothing, you mean people. Click the like button, L-I-K-E. Click that button if you would. Also, please share this or repost this. If you don't share this, you hate the children. I don't know why you hate the children. So share this already and stop hating children. It's important. Now, we talk about sponsorships and all those things. Yes. So do me a favor, become a member. Become a member, click that join button, $49 per month, keeps me going so I can actually make a living doing this. I can't, but enough of you do this, I can, right? So then I absolutely can do it. So click that button
nice
if you would. It is. I like eating. I'm a big fan. I like paying bills too. It's a good thing to do. I'm happy about that. So guys, help me do it if you could. You're saying, Larry, it is $5 a month. Another subscription? Yes, but the other subscriptions don't have guys as hot as me on it. That's the thing. You don't have that. This is the one. It's a cup of coffee. I drink coffee. You can drink your coffee vicariously through me. That's not a bad thing. You see me have coffee, you'll drink it vicariously through me. Life is good. Please take care of that if you will, guys. I appreciate it. But lastly, Derrick is here. So go visit his website, theconsciousresistance.com. And I spelled it wrong on there. Hold on. Let me put it right. Resistance. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. It is not wrong on the
it's not wrong.
It is not wrong in the show description. So there we go. Yes. Please put that, the conscious resistance. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing. You can see what he's doing. Follow him. It's important. And watch his stuff also on Sybil. All of those things are important. I think I have pushed enough of everything. I'm good, right? I pushed a bunch of stuff. I'm good. All right. Let me keep going. Got to do my job here. I got to do my job here. That's how that works. I got to do my job. All right, so let me keep doing this. If I could have a bunch more people who are putting up comments. I'm looking over at Rumble, and Peace says, let's see if I can find Peace. Oh, he just says greetings. Peace is just saying hi to everybody. So, hi, Peace. So Peace, I just said hi. All right, let me keep going down here. If I could have some more, I do want to grab. All righty, Patty. Oh my God, Patty says, just had surgery today, but watching, doped up, so I won't be commenting much, but here. Okay, if you're doped up, this show's even better. I'm just saying. It's even better. So, all good. I love that. I think it's amazing. All right, I'm grab a couple more of these here. Shelly says, I like Nate Friedman, especially his interviews in Mexico City. Well, look at that. So that's something. Here, Kim says, I like the investigative journalist, the ones legit or not who ask questions or spark me to look at things from different perspectives. And she goes on to say Whitney Webb. So she likes Whitney Webb. So there we go. So
Whitney does great work. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to collaborate with her and work with her on some different projects.
Here we go. Patty says, are there any Walter Cronkites out there anymore? Just the facts. I don't think so, Patty. I think that we have moved into a world of charisma. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're right that, I mean, it does play a major role. And because let's say somebody's just looking at a screen of YouTube or Twitter accounts or TikTok or whatever, and all they have is a thumbnail with a face of the person that's about to tell them the same event. They could listen to a dozen different videos. It's all about the same topic. There is probably some element of a person being, oh, wow, look, that looks like a professional person or a beautiful girl or a hot guy or whatever things they might be particularly attracted to. This is why a lot of content creators, I don't count myself among them, unfortunately, pay a lot of attention to thumbnails. And of course, because that's one of the first things people see. And now it does play a role. Obviously, it's true. But what you put there is likely to either attract or, have somebody scroll by. And so that does play a role. And that says nothing about the quality of the video or the journalism or the reporting.
Yep. Rick says commentary is news for most people. This is the saddest part. I think Rick is correct. They think they know about the commentary and think that's enough. And it isn't at all. I completely agree. So yeah. But I want to go to one piece if I could. We talk about commentary. Commentary gets people canceled. Commentary gets people shadow banned. Commentary gets people censored. And censorship's a big deal. Shadow banning, all those things, particularly during the lockdowns, right? That was terrible. I got hammered horribly during lockdowns. I've never recovered. When before the lockdowns, I would do one video, I'd get 5,000 views. Easy. Then all I said was, I don't think we should mandate the jab. I didn't even say I was against it. I just said, I don't think we should mandate it. Should we really mandate it? Boom. 90% loss. Overnight, had never recovered. I was horribly shadow banned. Censorship's a big deal. Now, if you're Joe Rogan, you don't care. You got 10 million people who will follow you wherever you go. You are uncancelable. But me and you, brother, we could be canceled.
Yeah, my YouTube channel that my original YouTube channel that I started back in, I think, 2012, it has, I think right now about 67,000 subscribers. In 2020, I had about 70,000 subscribers, and then October 2020, my entire channel was deleted because my lady, she had heard about a doctor in China who was doing intravenous high dose vitamin C treatments, and he was having a lot of successes. I was like, wow, that sounds interesting. That's the news. Let me reach out to him and interview him and share that with my audience. So I did an interview with this doctor. It was actually kind of a boring interview. He's just, an older Chinese American who does work in China and in the US, and was speaking about his results injecting people with vitamin C. The video first got deleted and then the entire channel taken down because they said that it did not comport with World Health Organization policy and recommendations. And it literally, I lost that channel until randomly last summer in 2024, it just turned on. So for 4 years, I lost access to that entire audience. Some of them followed elsewhere, but the vast majority, it took a big hit, as you can imagine, on my ability to reach people. I broadcast on a lot of places. I've got my own website and email list, but still, that was the biggest chunk of people, especially, let's say, mainstream people who find things through YouTube and who aren't necessarily going to go to alternative platforms yet.
I completely agree. It's terrible. Speaking of that, I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to look at my show description, and what you'll see is a link to the advocates. Click that link if you would. If you click that link, it'll take you to theadvocates.org. Theadvocates.org has literally right there a censorship and free speech survey. When you head on over there, click that link that I told you. Click that specific link because then they know that it comes from me. When you head up to the top, you're going to see a little thing that says quizzes and apps. You're going to head over to single issue surveys. And then when you head on down from that, head on down to censorship and free speech. Take that survey. When you've taken that survey, here's an example of the survey. When you've taken that survey, at the end of it, they're going to ask you for your email address. If you've already taken it, they already have it. If you haven't, you can give it if you want to. But either way, click the X if you don't want to give it. And when you get your results, share your results. Why? Because I want other people taking these quizzes. They're free, cost you nothing. I was just hawking $5 a month. Now I'm hawking $0. So don't be mad at me. It's $0. This is nothing for you. For those of you who don't want to do the $5, do this at $0. See, easy day. $0. Take this survey. When you're done, share it. Why? Other people will take it. Here's an example. Which of the following most closely aligns with your beliefs? Private social media companies ought to censor dangerous rhetoric that sows fear and division. 2, private social media companies ought to censor things that are obscene or that children ought not to see. 3, private social media companies shouldn't ever censor people, but they ultimately have a right to set their own policies. Which one's closest to you? Click that one and move on. And here's what will happen. You will start thinking about these things. So will your friends, so will your family, and you'll share it, and it moves forward. The advocates for self-government want people to actually be having these conversations. I want them to have these conversations. So please take this one. When you're done, share it on social media so people see it. Use the same link that's in my description. It's on Rumble, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, whichever one you want. Click that link so that people know, take it and share it. It's free, and it helps me with my sponsor here, the Advocates for Self-Government. All right, so I want to do that if we could. I have a couple more things up. We're talking about censorship. You actually packed up and left the country, didn't you?
Yeah, I moved out of the US in March 2020, right as COVID was starting. Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, I'd been visiting Mexico. My partner, her family's from Mexico. She was born in the US, but we'd been visiting Mexico together for 8-9 years at this point. And
oh, wow. Okay.
We kind of knew that at some point we wanted to move to Mexico. We travel around, visit her family and this sorts of things. And then when 2020 came, we did our annual trip to Mexico in January. So we'd be there and we were coming back from that. I remember telling her then, I'm hearing something's happening in China. This is maybe January, February. I was telling her, like, I'm not sure what it is, but we should probably keep an eye on things going on. By the time we got back home to the US, the stores were starting to empty out of toilet paper, as you might recall. All the weird things were starting to go on.
Yep.
And the US, Trump, of course, at the time was starting to talk. There were discussions ongoing about restricting interstate travel. And for me, that's kind of just something that always felt like I don't know, it's just not a safe moment for me. And so I told her, I said, why don't we go visit your grandfather back in Mexico? Let's go drive down there, visit him, and just sort of watch things from a distance, maybe we just need to get out of here for a little bit. And that's kind of was our initial trip across the border. We went and visited grandpa, and then we ended up finding the city where we live now in central Mexico, Morelia, Mexico, up in the mountains. And just discovering a lot of beautiful things about here. Every avocado that you eat is grown within 50 miles of where I'm sitting right now. And there's farms and cold springs and hot springs, a lot of beauty and different things like that. And so we have, over the last 5 years, transitioned our life here. We have land here now, and building a community with some other folks, really built around, the principles of individual liberty and self-ownership. I mean, that's largely that's, besides my journalism, the other side of my work, the philosophical, the libertarian, voluntarist side, is definitely dedicated to promoting that message and trying to be an example of that. So that's part of our efforts. And we got our property. We paid it off earlier this year, and we're starting to map out home sites and hopefully build beginning of next year.
Half my audience is going to pack up and move with you next year. So when they come, you'll just know it came from this show. You'll know that. Absolutely. So yes. All right. Let me go grab a couple of these. Rick says CNN dominated airports when they were still considered to be actual news with the least spin. Nowadays, it's just habit and lack of critical alternatives that keeps them there. They actually lost the contract. CNN used to have a contract, and they lost that contract because I think they weren't seen the same way they used to be seen. If you look at CNN from the 90s, particularly, I mean, they were the place to be. Since that time, they've really lost their way in many ways. So anyways, that's interesting. The moral marketer says, I see it this way. Not all independent news isn't actually what we once called alternative media. Many content creators just expressing their opinion, not actually reporting news. That again becomes my concern. I think a lot of people are seeing the same thing, right? It's just people talking their opinion, which is why I happen to like long form. Even Shelley says long form, I like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. I think long form makes us feel more comfortable, right? Am I wrong? Because I think we can see through the BS better when someone's talking longer. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it's easy for somebody to, especially a politician, to kind of put on a BS face if they've got a 30-second soundbite or a 1-minute soundbite. They just got to remember that. But you put them on. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people thought Kamala Harris didn't want to go on Rogan, or there was some issue with that because she wouldn't survive sort of a 3-hour actual conversation and even maybe some difficult questions. And I do think it does. It just allows for the nuances to come up instead of those sound bites and trying to put things in black and white, which in 30 seconds, you can't really explain complex topics. And most things are not black and white, but with a deeper conversation, obviously it doesn't always happen, but at least there's the opportunity to go deeper into get into some of these topics. And as far as that commentary comment someone made a moment ago, I think this is, again, as somebody who, when I started getting into independent journalism, I started out as probably what they would call a citizen journalist, just a little handheld camera, showing up, asking questions. I didn't have any official training. Not that I necessarily think it's required or anything like that. I've met people who are going to NYU journalism school who are following me on YouTube and were like, I wish I could do what you're doing. And they're paying $70,000 a year to go to some school while they're just watching me do independent media. And I told them, just start doing it.
Just
sure,
do
learn
it.
what you can learn in school, but just start going out in the streets, asking questions. I think part of it too is you have to have, it might just be built in for some of us where you have a knack for digging and asking questions. And it's like a puzzle for me to solve things like that. And because there hasn't been as much education around that, there's a lot of people who might call themselves journalists. And again, I'm not here to police who should be able to use that, because they did that to me when I was starting. The mainstream in Houston would say, you're not a real journalist, so you're not allowed in this press conference. You're not a real journalist. So, they would just be dismissive. I had to prove myself. So I don't want to do that to other people. And yet at the same time, if you aren't developing your own sources, if you're not looking at, pulling up court records, if you're not emailing people for a comment or calling people for a comment, which are all basic journalism practices and have been for generations, then I don't really know if you are a journalist. You could be a podcaster, you could be a researcher, you could be, I don't know, there's a commentator, there's all kinds of other titles.
Yeah.
And I do think it matters to some degree, because as soon as everybody's a journalist, then nobody's a journalist. And then what's the point anymore? It's just anybody can say
agree.
anything.
I do not call myself a journalist. I do not call myself a news guy. I don't. I call myself a host, because that's what I am. I call myself a host, and I don't mind that at all. Do I sometimes give cool commentary? Yes, always. But I'm still just a host either way. So anyway,
I had a friend back in the day who was an independent, I would say an independent journalist, but he was also an activist too. And so he would say he's an activist who commits random acts of journalism.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to commit some random acts of journalism. That's what I'm going to do. I like that. So you have more fans here. Lunatic says, I'm buying civil. Patty says, Derrick reminds me of my oldest son. So of course I like this young man. I have hope again. You've given her hope. Look at you go. I like that. Cool. Katie says, excellent series, worth your time. Yes, I'm on it. I couldn't watch all 17 shows. I couldn't get all 17 in, but I got a couple of them. So yes.
Can I mention something about that real quick, Larry?
One second. Let me just give you this real fast. And then yes, because Kim says, this is the guy responsible for civil pyramid of power. Good to meet you. Outstanding job. Love it. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I was just going to comment about that just to make that clear to people. So I've been working on the Pyramid of Power for the last 5 years, since 2020. It's been a completely crowdfunded project that I've raised $55,000 to pay for my amazing editors. I do all the research, I write the scripts, I do the audio narration, and then they make it look visually appealing and interesting to watch. And so you just want to thank everybody who's helped support it and those who also have signed up for Civil. The entire series has been available up in, for the last years as I've been releasing it. The main website for that is thepyramidofpower.net. But the main reason people should sign up for Civil, not only just to watch it from the comfort of your home and all that good stuff, but Chapter 17, which is the conclusion of it, which is actually a 3-hour episode that we split into 2 volumes. It is exclusively on Civil. So Volume 1 just came out on Friday, August 1st, and it's not available anywhere else. It'll be available later publicly, but right now it's only exclusively on Civil. And then also I put we're starting to put out some of my unreleased content. Like I've interviewed a bunch of different people for the series throughout the 17 episodes, but I only released 1-minute clip, 30-second clip, things like that. We've put up the full interview with G. Edward Griffin, who is, of course, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, and he did a lot of work on the Federal Reserve. So I did an interview with him a couple of years ago that I've never released, where he goes deep into his whole kind of life story of how he got into his line of work and questioning, the Federal Reserve and things like that. That's exclusively available only on Civil as well. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. You can find the series elsewhere, but you can't find the 17th episode anywhere but Civil right now.
There we go. So you guys got to join up, civil.com, and the code is Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, the coolest name in the world. I just said so. It is. Do that. 50% off. $25 a year is a steal. Absolutely. You're going to jail once you do it, because it's such a steal. That's it. Kim says, I love Glenn Beck. Then Kim, put in Glenn Beck and Larry Sharpe in Google or YouTube, and you will see the interview I did with him. It is my favorite interview. So Andrew says, AP is good, though it's good to look at a lot of different sources at different angles. I think AP is good. I agree. When it comes to all of those things, AP, I think, is one of the better ones. Am I wrong?
I think they're about as neutral as you're going to get from
there we go.
A big older outlet. Like, of course, I wouldn't expect to see too much bias one way or the other. They tend to just literally, it's just straight sentence of this was reported, a judge ruled this, and there's no comment about, and Trump is, stupid for saying this. It's just, here's what the facts are. And then, of course, you can expect CNN, Fox, et cetera, to then take those news stories and add their commentary to it. But for the most part, I think the news wires are probably about as neutral as you're going to get when it comes to the legacy media. There
we go. Michael says, anyone who watches redacted news, We Are Change, Sunday Cool, Gerald Caliente, I like Gerald, or Annette, or Anonymous Official, or Riz Flex, or Rebel Capitalist, or Ron Paul Liberty Report, or The Sharpe Way is not mainstream recycled. Oh, that's nice. Look at that.
I'll be on Redacted this Friday, by the way. People can see that to talk about more about the Pyramid of Power.
There we go. So there we go. You guys got to watch Redacted. Exactly. To watch that too. Exactly right. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So well, a lot of people are going back and forth on this. So some of the stuff isn't for us. It's kind of back and forth with them. So I'm happy. That's a good thing that people are going back and forth. The funny thing about this show is the chat is very active, and they will often have conversations without me, which is kind of cool. So Andrea says, I like Allison Monroe as she has people that were censored to tell on the television. I love Allison. She's a friend of mine. I've had her many times on my show. She's been on my show 2 or 3 times already. I love her. I completely agree. Michael's on to say, I enjoy Alex Jones, but I'm suspicious of him. Alex Jones is a personality more than anything else. Am I wrong here?
I don't think you're wrong. I'm from Texas, where Jones is from as well. And I was on InfoWars 3 times back in 2011 and 2012 related to some of my activism in Houston. And, a lot of people who knew him from Texas, like as far as you were in Austin, you would see Alex around even before he blew up to the level he is at now. He was always big in Texas on radio there. And it was clear back then that a lot of the things he does are driven by ego. And I would say there's definitely financial interest. So that kind of, if he wants to be sensationalist and loud or cry or silly, if that gets clicks, and this is not just me saying this, I think that you can also speak to former employees of InfoWars, which unfortunately there are quite a bit who have left over time. And I think even more to the point, I've done some videos that people can find at The Conscious Resistance. One of them I did back in the early days of Trump's first administration was called "The Silence from InfoWars is Deafening." It was basically me looking at reports from Alex Jones in 2011 and some of the things he was critical of in the Republican Party, and then some of the same things and same people popping up in Trump's first cabinet, and noticing the silence and the crickets from Jones around that time. And so I think he definitely has a bias towards Trump, just like a lot of other media do, one way or the other, and that influences what he's willing to cover and not cover. And that's where I think it can be dangerous, and why people need to think for themselves. Don't just take his one opinion or view to be gospel, especially if he's in the past. InfoWars may have broken stories because, they had a lot of money and resources even years ago. But these days, yeah, it's more, I think, of kind of clickbaitish, sensationalist, conspiracy media with some elements of truth in there somewhere.
Here we go. Mike Voss says, this is my third channel on YouTube. Discord deleted my channel without warning a notice, which says nothing of suppression and upcoming age verification issues coming August 13th. Yeah, it's about to get a whole lot tougher on YouTube, I know. By the way, we're also on Rumble too. So guys, we may be rushing over to Rumble one day. Who the hell knows? We'll see. Because Andrea goes on to say, I will say YouTube's at it again. I haven't got notifications for Larry's show for days. I checked and I have it marked for all notifications. Guys, for those of you who know, I've been shadow banned for literally 5 years. This is why I bug you all the time. Click the like button and interact. You must interact with this or YouTube will ignore me. So please interact with it. I know you'll love me. And go to Sharpe Way YouTube. And when you do that, make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube decides randomly, oh, I think you're a bot, and then decides to unsubscribe you. That's a real thing. I'm not making that up. It goes, Andrea, you're a bot. I've just decided so. And it gets rid of you. So I'm glad you're still watching, guys. Please make sure you do so. And also, please head over to theconsciousresistance.com. Check out what he's doing also. He also has YouTube and Twitter and all the things. So see what he's doing over there also. All right. I'm going to grab a couple more of these if I can. Andrea goes on to say, unfortunately, the boomer generation still believe in CNN and Fox. And they vote. They vote. Both of those are true. And they vote. So yes. All righty. I'm going to grab a couple more of these. Kim says, thank you so much for introducing me to Civil. You're more than welcome. Absolutely. I'm very happy that you guys are enjoying it. So, all righty. I think I covered all of those. And then Michael says, thanks to Derrick. Well, there we go. Good. I do want to ask, before we wrap this up, Derrick, is there anything I've missed? Something we should be talking about, something I've missed?
Well, I mean, first off, thanks for having me on, Larry, and thanks to everybody for the interesting comments and all the fun convo here. Me talking about media and independent alternative media and corporate media is one of my favorite topics, especially the more I don't know if it's just me getting older and turning into a grumpy man. I'm noticing all these things that annoy me about the way people are, carrying themselves on, but it's really because I do care about trying to get factual information out, and I want to help empower people. I think an educated public is an empowered public. They get more informed. You can make better decisions. So it's something I do take seriously. So I encourage people to, check out my work at theconsciousresistance.com and see if you like it. I also want to mention that people can download my book. If you want to learn more about some of my books, the one I think you might be interested, maybe we can talk about it another time, is called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. And you can download it for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. It's also available in a audiobook and all that stuff, but you can find it on the website. It's kind of blurred out there, but there you go.
There we go. There we go. We are ready to go. Guys, I want to ask a question. Remember, let you know that I would say this all the time. Please remember the new rules. After the live is over, come back after it's over and put a comment. This way, the YouTube gods love it. The algo rhythms love when you do so. So please put a comment. I'm going to ask you, tell me what you think of mainstream media. That is the question I'm asking you. What do you think of mainstream media? Put that in the comments after this is over. Remember, if you're watching this and it's not Monday night, it's later on, it's not live, you're going to see 2 videos pop up. Click on one of them and watch it right away for like 8 or 10 minutes. The algo loves that too. Guys, I'll be back on tomorrow. I will see you all very soon.